Hello, friends. It's me. I'm feeling extra relaxed tonight. I've made fancy tea that was sent by a wonderful friend who also wrote this story. That's right, it's our wonderful friend River who sent us a interesting tale. And I don't know, just the name alone has made me just filled with intrigue. Let's just begin, shall we? Enough burying the lead, right? Let's just get right into it. So, from our friend River, this is, if it exists, it wants to test us. I don't know where this is going to go, but so be it. Hello, beautiful family who I love so very much. Oh, hi, River. Moon, Sango, and all of you are absolutely amazing and beautiful people inside and out, and I am so lucky to have all of you in my life. River really is the best. Please remember to eat, drink plenty of water, and bundle up if you can. I know it's getting cold over here, but no matter what the weather, don't forget to be as comfy as you can be. Very good advice. I have a few little stories for you. As many of you know, I do editing work, and I teach for a living. A lot of skills that I've picked up in teaching feeds very well into my editorial work. When I'm working with kids, I usually know what to expect. Occasionally, I'll have a first grade student tell me that wendigos are scary, but they know they'll be okay as long as there's an adult they trust nearby. Yes, this actually happened. However, my adult clients are a bit more unpredictable. I remember the wendigo story. I remember when the River told me about that. What an interesting thing to be known. Just have a kid tell you about, just okay. Before I started officially taking clients, the first thing I did was develop my own contract and work out what my expectations would be. First and foremost, I don't work for royalties. That's about the equivalent of working for free with the chance that I might make something from it. While I was on the phone with a potential client, I spoke with them over the phone, laying out what was on the contract and explaining what my role as an editor would look like. As soon as I said, I do not ever work for royalties, the response was something like, I don't understand why not. It's a blessing when an author will offer you some of their royalties in exchange for your work. You could be working with the next big best-selling author. A little bit of advice to my lovely freelance editors out there. There's a reason why I still don't work for royalties. It is a giant gamble, and I suggest that no self-respecting editor take it. What I do instead, if a client really can't pay my regular rate and wants to go the royalty route, is I offer a payment plan or a discount alongside a small percentage of royalties. I also do not have a client start paying me until they have their contract signed and a sample edit of the first part of their work. This way, they know for certain that my editing style will meet their needs. There needs to be trust in the relationship, and that's a good way to help develop it. Anyway, I also work as a senior editor with a small company, and in my position, I help with onboarding for new writers. A new writer will be asked to complete a test order of around 5,000 words. Their order must fulfill the requirements of the topic chosen by the writer, must contain a royalty-free image from one of the sites that we work with, and must have a reference page in APA format. If there are any in-text citations, those must be in APA as well. Lord help me when I began my duties as a senior editor. We had openings for fiction writers. The test order had to be in contemporary romance, and I would receive some very interesting and highly specific information about kinks that I did not know existed. Oh boy. While this whole story could be an entire list of weirdly shaped objects I find in these stories that don't belong there, thank you very much, I do not believe we have the time. One of these writers didn't do their dialogue punctuation or dialogue tags correctly. Since this was a consistent error, I sent a message to the writer on the platform explaining the issue and asking if they could make the change. The story was mostly dialogue, and that was another problem. I needed to make sure they could do all of this correctly. Their response was to say that the way they had done dialogue, punctuation, and tags was how they were taught, and it fit a certain international standard. While knowledge of international standards can be helpful for customers who request it, we don't get that standard request very often. So we need to make sure our writers have good working knowledge of the standard style guide. So I made the edits in suggestion mode so that the writer could see and understand how to do their dialogue and tags correctly and how to fix some of their other errors. For example, this writer wanted to use a lot of semicolons, but didn't use them correctly. Half the time, the semicolon separated two dependent clauses, but even if a comma, a more correct choice, had been there, the sentence still would have been a badly placed fragment. The story wasn't horrible, but it was poorly executed. However, the writer insisted that the changes that I had made were wrong, and that they wrote the way they were taught to. I needed a sanity check from the admin team to make sure I wasn't losing my mind. Another writer was someone who had a referral form from someone on the admin team. I didn't know this at the time, I had a bit of a backlog, but I had also just gotten the second dose of the COVID vaccine. I was out of commission for a couple of days for a great cause, but when I was on my way to the office space I used, I received a message on Slack from one of my admin supervisors. This admin was very understanding that I'd been recovering, but she told me that this writer had sent some nasty messages to another admin who received her initial application. This writer thought they were entitled to immediate review because they had an in. Oh boy. We got a writing Karen on our hands. I entered the platform and prioritized this writer as I promised to do. I was fully upfront with them about what was going on, and they changed their tone. For a little bit. I went through and performed the edits as usual, but it was an absolute mess. I checked the list of requirements for the prompt that they had picked, and 2 of the points were completely missed. The outline was sparse. I have no idea what or where they were working from, but I have a guess. Their grammatical choices were more for aesthetic than function, something that I immediately point out. The organization and pacing didn't take into account that this was the first 5,000 words of a book. Instead, it seemed as though they wanted to pack the whole book into about 5,000 words. I did full edits to about half of the manuscript before I terminated the order. However, the writer decided to fight back through their admin reference saying that my decision wasn't valid because I didn't do a full edit on her entire manuscript. I have no obligation to do this. My only obligation is to provide feedback, which I did, so I provided the details notes from my first pass of her manuscript, proving that I had read the whole thing and that my feedback hadn't changed. For reference, the first pass is the reading pass, the second pass is the mechanical pass where I provide comments and line edits. Suffice it to say, I was in the clear. Then we have our lovely non-fiction onboarding writers. Some of these are self-help, some of these are no help. No evidence of any research done, admittance that no research was done, and the writing didn't hold up. And others are dives into the subject. All of these were orders from customers of our company and could be found easily. Thus far, I've only found 1 count of plagiarism. One of the most common errors I find in first-time nonfiction writers is they seem to want their sources to write the text for them. So here's a common piece of advice that I give to people working in these sources. 1. Introduce the source. 2. Give and cite, please, the source. And 3. Analyze said source. It's generally not the best practice to begin a paragraph with a quote or end on one. If you are providing a quotation at the beginning of your chapter, fine, but it needs to have a purpose. It cannot do its work if it does not apply in any way to the overall theme of the chapter. I have a writer who could be very engaging. Their book descriptions did sell the text and give a small summary of its contents. However, when I get into the text, it was paragraph upon paragraph of source upon citation. I remember this writer being very confident in their work, or at least appearing that way. My message to them was something like, you do show a lot of promise and you're a capable writer, but I'm noticing that your test order is packed with sources with summary rather than analysis. I'm going to need you to show that you can draw points from the ideas presented and possibly organize a book from it. Can I ask you to please complete an exercise for me? I received about 4 messages in succession following this one. The first 2 were not understanding where it was coming from. They were frantic. They thought their idea was original. The last message will stick with me. It said, "Wait, no, I see it. It's everywhere. Please help." What? I finally got this poor person to calm down. I gave them the model and told them to pick a section and do their best to follow the model and see what they thought after they were done. The order was about 2 chapters, and this writer actually ended up going above and beyond what I'd asked for and rewrote one of the chapters. We worked together for a little bit, and I answered some questions before the order was a pass. This would not be the first time I'd get a writer freak out. Judging from what I hear from my fellow editors, they've gotten their share. To give you an idea of some of the things we hear from writers, I just got a message today saying that a writer said a married couple is like, quote, 2 fully cooked adults. Interesting choice of words. When I tell you I'm lost, this is what I mean. Anyway, one possibility for test order subject is related to marriage. We get a lot of requests for self-help books, so having this as one of our tests isn't unusual. What is unusual is for a writer to have a note in the table of contents begging the editor to pass them. Okay. It was on the marriage test order, and it felt like wading through a rapidly drying cement up to the ankles, with goodness knows what else up to the waist. There were 2 sources, which is fine, but neither of them were cited in APA format, and I didn't see any of the subject matter within either of the sources used in the test order. Punctuation was severely limited or overused in the case of the dash. A narrative about a married couple took up about a third of the test order. There was no analysis of it except to say that marriage could be like that example. Marriage can be like a lot of things. I guess it's also like 2 fully cooked adults. I've worked with plenty of writers, and I love what I do. I've worked with wonderful writers who know what they're doing, who are enthusiastic about what they do, who know how to work with an editor. However, I've worked with some crazies who have made me question reality. Moon, Sango, my dearest family, I thank you all for listening to my ramblings about these people who will not format even though the document comes pre-formatted. Anyway, I'm only scratching the surface. If you'd like to hear more about the crazy writers I've worked with, the kind of advice I've given them, and the bucket of crazy that's barely been tipped, I'd be happy to provide. If you are listening, I'm so proud of you for waking up today. You are important, you are loved, and you deserve to be. Please do take care of yourselves. River's story reminds me of that post we read, I believe it was on stream, about the coffin nail nipples, and if you haven't read that, I absolutely recommend looking it up. It's fantastic. I want to know what kind of absolutely strange things are sent in that you're supposed to look over and edit. There's so much to go on with this. Like, I've never edited people's work professionally, but I imagine the amount of people who now think that they can be a millionaire writing the next 50 Shades of Grey is, out there. I do imagine that that's like a whole contentious group, and I would love to hear more stories about that. I can't get over that one response. I found it. It's everywhere. Please help. What was everywhere, I wonder? Oh, goodness. This was an interesting tale, though. This was definitely a look into a world that I honestly have never seen before. So this was kind of fascinating, and if River would like to share more interesting stories from working in this field, please feel free. And if any of you have stories you'd like to send me, r/Moonhorse stories, you can send them there. I'll definitely check it out. Please make sure you like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I have a Ko-Fi and a merch store, and I'd be very grateful if you check those out. But if you can't, that's okay too. Every Saturday there is a live stream, and you can come hang out with me and all of my very interesting friends. And I have a Discord server, which is like the live stream, except without the streaming and the live part. You know, like it, but also not. I'm good at outros. Anyway, I love you all, and I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye, everybody.